Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 3 of my How to Make Video Games tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, I'm going to completely finish up Pong. That means I am going to program the AI paddle, as well as the splash screen and the user interface and everything else that comes up. Like always, all the code is available in the description underneath the video, and if you haven't seen the previous parts of the tutorials, you should watch those, otherwise you will be confused. And I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we are once again. I'm using the Windows version of Unity, but it doesn't matter. You can use Mac OS. You can do whatever you'd like. Okay, so let's make the right paddle actually do some stuff now. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to Scripts and Create and C# Script. And I'm going to call this AI Paddle. And click on that guy and double click on it. And it's going to open up inside of Visual Studio. And there it is. All right, so you got to think about what I'm going to need to do with the AI paddle. Well, basically, its movement is all going to be based off of the movement of the ball. So I'm going to need a reference to the ball. So there, and let's just call it the ball. That works out pretty good. I am also going to want to have a default speed for my paddle. And I'm going to make it the same speed as I have for my ball, which is going to be 30. And I'm probably going to increase that depending upon how hard I want this paddle to be defeated in regards to that. And then there's something else. It's called lerp. And basically lerp is going to be used to smooth out movement over time. And what I mean by that is, let's say we have our paddle moving in a direction, and we say we want to move it from this position to this position, and then from there to the next position. Well, that could either be really jerky, or if we use something called a lerp, which is a method you're going to see here in a minute, it is going to be a smooth transition from one position to another position. And you're going to see what that looks like. And I'm going to have something that I call lerp tweak, which is going to allow me to sort of tweak how smoothly this guy or this paddle is going to move on our screen. And what else do I need? Well, I'm going to need a reference to the paddle rigid body, because we're going to be moving that. So I'm going to go private and rigid body 2D. And I'm just going to call that rigid body, of course. And then I'm going to come down here inside of start and initialize this guy. And I just want to get a reference to the attached rigid body in this situation. So I'm going to go rigid body is equal to, and we use get component, of course. So get component. And I know that I'm looking for the rigid body in this situation. And there that guy is. That's basically all I need to do in regards to that. Now, once again, since we are going to be using rigid bodies for movement here, we want to update each time the frame changes, but we want to do it with rigid bodies. That means we use fixed update instead of regular old update. And what are we going to have to do inside here? Well, we are going to want to check if the ball Y position is greater than the paddle Y position, and if so, make a change. And otherwise, if the ball Y position is less than the position for the paddle, in that situation, we will move in an opposite direction. So we're just going to move our paddle, tell our AI paddle to move as the change in Y occurs for our ball. And that's how it's going to be able to track the ball and then send it back to us. So how do we do that? Well, I'm just going to say if the ball, make sure we spell that right, the ball, and we use transform for position information, position, and we specifically are interested in the Y position because that's how we're moving, is greater than transform, and this is going to be the Y position for our paddle. Well, then we want to do certain things. And what specifically do we want to do? Well, we want to create our vector2 direction new vector 2, and we want to move upwards. So we're going to put 0 inside of there because we're not moving on the X plane, and 1 inside of there because we are moving on the Y plane. Now what we want to do is we want to use lerp, and what it's going to receive is 2 vectors, and then it's going to smooth the movement over time. So we're going to go rigid body and velocity is equal to vector2, and there's lerp, and we're going to go rigid body, whoops, yeah, make sure it's set that way, velocity, and then we're going to take direction and multiply it times speed. Let's move that down to the next line. And then we are going to put our lerp tweak inside here. So this is just going to allow us to have a way to sort of tweak how that smooths out the movement for our paddle. And then you're going to pass in time, delta, time. And whenever you use time, delta, time, what you're basically doing is defining that you want to move the paddle a certain distance in reference to the game's frame rate. And I'll get more into that as the tutorials continue. Then what we want to do is handle situations in which the ball's Y position is going to be less than the paddle's Y position. We're basically going to do the same type of thing here. So I'm just going to copy this. And then I'm going to say else if, well, I'll get rid of the if part and just paste that in there like that. And I'll say the ball transform position Y is less than the transform position in the Y direction for our paddle. And here, I'm going to change this to -1. And everything else here, I believe, can stay exactly the same. Yes, indeed, it can. Otherwise, I'm going to say else and create another vector here. Direction is equal to new vector 2, and this is going to be 0. And we'll call normalized on that as well, even though you don't really have to. And then we will go rigid body velocity is equal to vector 2 dot lerp rigid body velocity, and then we're going to pass in the same stuff. So let's just copy this, paste that inside of there, and there we go. All right, so the AI for our paddle is all done. That's all we needed to do for that. We can save it, and now we can go in there and set up the user interface that's going to show the scores for both of our paddles. So we're back inside of Unity once again. What I want to do is go into the hierarchy. So let's go right here, and I'm going to go create, and I'm going to go UI and text, and that's going to create our canvas that we will be able to have our user interface elements show up on. Now we have to select canvas and set some things up over here so that everything lines up real nice. I'm going to come in here for render mode, and I'm going to change that to world space. I'm going to get the event camera, that's this guy right here. I'm just going to go and grab our main camera and drag and drop it directly inside of there, right there. Dynamic pixels per unit, I'm going to change that from 1 to 10. And reference pixels per unit, we'll just leave that at 100. And I'm just basically just scaling the canvas so that it fits in on the camera itself. Now I want to go in and create my little text elements. I already created one right here. So let's just select that, and I'm going to call this left score UI and enter on that. And then after I do that, I can make additional changes to canvas. So let's select canvas once again, and let's come over here and position it. I want to have my positions all be set to 0. So all this is going to be 0. I'm going to scale it down because you can see, if I scroll out here, that the canvas is bigger than my camera area. So I'm going to come in here and scale that down. So let's go and try 0.09 and 0.09 and 0.09. And you can see now that it shrunk itself down a lot better. And everything else can be left exactly the same. So now I want to go and get my left score UI. And when I selected it, you can see that it's way down here in the bottom of the screen. I'm going to make sure that I have this guy up here selected. And then I'm going to drag it up and put it right above there. I don't know, that looks good enough, doesn't it? Let's go and change the color on it. Well, it's way too big also, so I got that selected. And let's change our width from 160 to say like 80. And what else can we do? Height, let's just leave that at 30, that's fine. Scales all at 1 are perfectly fine. The text, since this is going to be a score, I'm going to start it off with 0. And Arial, I'm going to have this be set for bold. And I'll leave that as 14. That's perfectly fine. And let's come down here and change the color to white because my background is black, so it's not going to show up if you have it that way. So just come in here and select a white, not a black. There we are. And there we go. And let's see how that shows up. And you can see that it's right there. Let's go move it around a little bit more, something like that. And let's increase the size of it. Let's try 21 or something. And that looks a little bit better. And let's go and play it just to see what happens. As long as we don't have any errors, we can see. Okay, so that looks good enough. Okay, this isn't a masterpiece game here. I'm just trying to cover as many things as possible. All right, so now we got that. We can come in and we can create another text element. So we're going to come in and go down to I selected canvas, right-clicked on it, UI, and text. And then this is going to be right score UI. So right, score UI. Works fine. Where is that guy going to be? So there's left score. You can see it's right there in the center of the screen. So let's go and grab it and move it up, say, right in this area. And let's go and change some different things, just like we did previously. We're going to change the width to 80 and height's fine. All this fine. Let's change this to bold. Change this to 21. Let's change this to white so we can see it. There it is, and let's change the default text to 0, just like we did previously. Whoops, don't want that to enter in there. And then we can go and look at it, and you can see that it's not in a good position here right now, so I want to zoom in on it and make it a little bit better. I'm going to right click so I can drag it down there with my hand, and let's just bring it in, something like that. All right, so that's good enough. So there you can see that those all line up, and that's all we need to do with that guy. Now what we need to do is go into ball.cs and update it so that whenever the paddle or whenever the ball hits the goals, that these UI elements are going to increase in number. Okay, so here is ball, and you can see I also went in there afterwards and put in some comments. Way down here, after all of these other different methods, I'm going to create a function that is going to update those UI text elements that I just put inside of there. And so it's not going to return anything, and I'm going to call this increase text UI score, and it's going to receive a string, which is going to be the text UI name that we want to increase the value on. So what I want to do is find the matching text UI component. So I'm going to go var text UI components is equal to, and to do that we go game object, and then we say find and put inside of there the text UI name. And then from that, we go get component. And what are we looking for? We're looking for a text element. So we just put that in there, and there we go. Now we have a reference to that guy. Let's get rid of this. There we go. And that's not text alignment. Let's get rid of that. And that's giving us an error because we need to come in here and import a library to be able to mess around with the user interface. And that's going to be Unity Engine .ui, and now that error is going to go away, as you're going to see here. Let's scroll down. There it is. The error went away. Now we need to get the string that's currently stored inside of that element, and that's going to be our current score. So we need to go and convert it from a string into an integer. So we're going to go parse and text UI comp like that, and then call text, and that's how you get the text from a text element. We are then going to increment the score by 1 because we scored a goal. And then we will call text UI comp text. And this is how you assign a value back to a text element. You need to convert it into a string, and that's how we convert it into a string. All right, so that is how we are going to be able to go in there and edit the scores for our games. And now we need to go up here and, where are we looking at here? Look for where the ball actually hits one of the goals, and that's right here. So let's just go in here, and this is where we will be editing. And what do we want to do? Well, if it hits one of the goals, we will update one score. If it hits another goal, we will update a different score. So we want to find out what the ball collided with, the name of the goal, and we go game object name, and if it's equal to the left goal, well, in that situation, we're going to call our function increase text UI score, and we're just going to pass in right score UI, which is what we want to increment. And then otherwise, if it hit the other one, which is going to be our right goal, well, then we want to call the left score UI and have that get updated. All right, so I think I got most of that all set up. Looks good. Let's go test our program, see how it's working. Come up here and hit play. Oh, why is, I know why it's not working. Well, you have to go back and assign it. So let's go and get our right paddle. There it is. And we'll go and get our AI paddle and drag it and drop it right on there. And then we need to go and get our ball and drag that over and drop that in there so that the script knows what ball to track. And let's save it and run it. And you can see the AI paddle is working beautifully. And let's go and see. Yep, sure enough, we are also scoring points. All right, so all that's working out. Now what we need to do is go and set up our background music and our splash screen, and everything will be done. Okay, so to create our splash screen, what we want to do is we want to go into our scenes area that we have right here and right click on that. And then we'll say create, and we're going to create a brand new scene. And there's that scene. And I'm going to call this splash screen. And then what I need to do is make a script that is going to load the main scene after a few seconds. And so to do that, we're going to go into our scripts area and right click on that and go create C# script. And let's just call this splash screen because that's going to work perfectly fine. And there that is. And then we'll double click on it. Here we are, click on reload, and here is splash screen. And we're going to need to go get a new library here. So we're going to go using Unity Engine and Scene Management. And this is going to allow us to switch our scenes. And what we're going to need to have in here as properties is the next scene that we want to load. So I'm going to go public string scene to load. And also we're going to have another public attribute here that's going to be the number of seconds to wait before we load a new scene. So I'm going to call this seconds till scene load. And inside of start, to initialize this guy, I want to basically wait a certain period of time and then call a function. And how you do that is use a function called invoke, and you say what function you want to call, and there that is. And then you tell it how many seconds to wait before you call that function. So there that is. Then we need to create this function. So open next scene, and we don't need update in this situation, so let's get rid of it. And then we're going to say void open next scene, and open that guy up. And then inside of it, we call the scene manager and load scene and the scene to load. All right, so that's how easy it is to wait a couple seconds and then have different scenes open up. And what I did, I go and accidentally chop off one of these curly brackets. Yes, I think I did. All right, I have that all set up and we don't have any other errors. That's all we need to do for setting that up. So let's save that. We're back over inside of Unity, and we can go and change our scenes here. So I'm going to open up my scenes, and I'm going to change to the splash screen just by double clicking on it. Don't have much going on here, so I'm going to right click, move this towards the center, and zoom in here a little bit. That all works perfectly fine. And then I am going to attach this script that is going to change the scenes, the splash screen one, to our camera. So I'm just going to grab that and drop it right there. And then we'll have the scene to load and the time to wait until it loads. Let's change this to time to wait to 3 seconds. And then what we're going to need to do for scene to load is to put main scene inside of there. So let's just go in there and type it in. And there's main scene. Okay, so that's all set up. Now we can create our user interface, which is just going to be the text that says Pong on it just by going create UI and text directly like this. We're going to set up the canvas in exactly the same way. We'll just click on this and change this to title or something like that, or Pong title, Pong title. That works out fine. Click on canvas. Come over here. Render mode is going to be world space just like before. The camera is going to be our camera. So just grab the camera over here, drop it directly inside of there. We're going to change our position on this to 0 for all of these guys. Pivot's perfectly fine. We're going to scale it to exactly the same way we scaled it before. So 0.09, 0.09, and 0.09. And then we're going to change dynamic pixels per unit to 10, just like we did before. Way down here, you can see this is where Pong is. We're going to drag that guy. Whoops, let's just go in here and grab it like this. We're going to grab him, put him in the center of the screen, and let's name this Pong. And let's go and make this Arial bold, and let's go and make it like 30 or something. And the rest of that looks fine. And let's play around with the text size for Pong. Let's just put it like this. That looks perfectly fine. And take it up to, I don't know, 26, something in that area looks pretty good. And I could play around with the size and so forth, but I don't need to. And then what I'm going to need to do is basically set up the build settings, and that's going to be where I define all of my scenes and how they load. And to get to that, I come over here and I go File, and then I go Build Settings. And then I'm going to go Add Open Scenes. So that's going to be my splash screen right like that. And I can close this. And then I'm going to save everything. So I'm going to go File, Save Scenes. And then I'm also going to go File, Save Project. And then I'm going to change to our main scene like this. And then I'm going to go File, Build Settings once again. And I can say Add Open Scenes and make sure the splash screen shows up before, it should be, well, whatever. It shows up before the main scene. You don't have to hit anything right now in regards to build or anything. It's all going to work perfectly fine. And then I'm going to define my background music. And to do that, inside of my hierarchy, once again, I'm going to do this in the splash scene, splash screen scene, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go in the hierarchy. I'm going to go Create, and I'm going to go Audio, and then I'm going to go Audio Source, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it Music because that's what it is. So there's Music. And then with that selected, I'm going to go and get my audio clip and drag it in there. So sounds, and there's the techno background music. So let's grab that guy and drop it directly inside of there. And I'm going to check on loop. There's loop right there. And I'm going to turn the volume way down. So let's play around with that. Get that down a little bit lower so you don't hear it really loud. And then I'm going to create another function or another script called continue playing music that is going to make the music that is playing in the main first scene, it's going to play into the next scene whenever it loads. Otherwise, if you don't set it up this way, then it is going to automatically destroy the music whenever the new scene loads. So I'm going to go Scripts, Create, C# Scripts, and I'm going to call this guy Continue Playing Music. And that's exactly what it's going to do. Double click on that, click on Reload, and this guy started up. And then inside of here, I can just go into Update. And if I don't want to destroy the background music whenever a new scene loads, all I have to do is go Don't Destroy on Load and define this game object. Whoops, this game object. So game object. And the background music will keep playing even though the scene changed. Okay, so we're going to save all, and then we're going to check our work to see how everything worked out here. We're pretty much done. And there you can see is Pong. You can also hear the music. Whoops. Well, it's working, so why did the music shut off? Let's go figure that out. And I know why it wasn't working. What I need to do is get music inside of here, and then attach continue playing music to it. So drag it, drop it right there. Everything should work out fine now. So I'm going to go and let's lower the volume a little bit on this so it's not quite so high. And let's go and play it. And you're going to see it's going to wait a couple seconds. Hear the music. And then this is going to work. The AI paddle's working. The scores are going to work, as you're going to see, and so forth and so on. Now, of course, I could go in there and, tweak this and do other things with it. You can do that for homework or whatever, and as the tutorial continues, I'm going to make more and more advanced games. So if there's any game you'd like to see that's reasonable, that I could, make in a short number of videos, please leave those down in the comments section. And just like always, please leave your questions and your comments below. And otherwise, till next time.